This is episode 62 of our road to Unicum, and today we look at the WZ-132-1. This is the Tier 10 Chinese light tank in World of Tanks. I found this tank to be a significant upgrade over the Tier 9 WZ-132-A. I'm going to show a couple maps that people have had a lot of questions about spotting. One is the new Glacier map, that's this map, and then I'm going to show how to spot the 1-2 lanes, what I think is the smartest and most consistent way on Prokhorovka. Now with the WZ-132-A, it took me 210 battles to unlock the Tier 10, and I struggled to a 58% win rate, which was significantly lower. With the Tier 8, I had like a 72% win rate over the first 100 battles, and then with this WZ-132-1, I've had like a 67% win rate in the first 100 battles. But having the strong turret armor really helps. And, you know, like all Chinese light tanks, this tank has terrible gun depression of only like -5 degrees. And one thing that kind of sucks here is the Centurion 5-1 was able to push up and poke at me and shoot, and nobody punished him. Ideally, part of what you want to do is bait people to poke over the ridge that you've got lit so they can get shot. But in that case, I probably should have pulled back. And there definitely is a risk of riding the ridge too high because you can get shot. You know, of course, they do have an arty. Now, if you're playing a tank that has poor gun depression, like -5 degrees max, such as this WZ, you have to look at places where you can kind of aim over the ridge. So one common technique is to come up high on a side, like I'm going to come up high just on this rock here and then aim to the left so that I'm aiming over the side of my tank. And then I was going to shoot that heavy tank camping in the back, and then their Batchat 12T happened to cross in my line of fire. And looking at the map, they do have a 13105 up on the ramp to my northwest. Now I can see that he's firing. You see those tracers? I can hear him firing his gun, so I know he's clipping out. Okay, so he just fired his last shot. He's backing up, and one thing he's doing, and you'll see me make this mistake later too, he's pulled back so far to the northwest on the ramp that he can't spot my approach. If he spots my approach, their Pantera, their Centurion 5-1, the Centurion 7-1 can all shoot me, but because he's pulled back so far, I'm able to get up here and put a shot into him and run him over, since the WZ-132-1 weighs about 33,000 kilograms, so it is like twice the weight of some of the squishier tanks. Now the thing about being all the way up here is that I am going to have the first shot advantage. Those tanks that are in the middle of the map are not going to spot me until I fire. And so, you know, here it's just a matter, you can see the 5-1 just fired, and predictably he's going to back up, and that's going to give me a kill shot there. Now, I have played this map quite a bit. The Northwest Brawling is a very important area for heavies and brawly-oriented, you know, assault TDs and medium tanks. I have tried so many different ways of playing the southeastern side of the map, but part of the problem on the southeastern side is the outer road that goes along the edge of the map is very kind of long and windy and has areas where you have to drive out exposed. And so, you know, for a camo vision tank like this, it's not so great. By the way, this is like that's the one shot that I can take because of the poor gun depression is at 7-1, but all these other tanks are too tucked in below me that I'm not going to be able to get a shot. And then, you know, I think this is like an aircraft carrier ship, but if I were to drive here to the left, if I had better gun depression, I could potentially shoot at those tanks that are over in mid, but because of this terrible gun depression, it's not even an option. So there's really not much that I can do here. Now, part of the problem is I haven't been watching the southeast side of the ramp. If I'm spotting the ramp, then what would have happened is I would have noticed that this Pantera is coming up, and he might have been shot, you know, upon entering that little alleyway by our tank destroyers. At least, you know, he would have been spotted and I would have known that he was there. And then I was sliding down the hill, I activated the repair kit option but didn't actually select whether it's going to be ammunition or tracks, and part of it just depended on whether or not, if I was going to get free like I did, then I'll go ahead and repair the ammo rack, obviously, but you know, if I got tracked, then first priority is just getting away to live another day. Now their STI is going to be putting across, so I got to be careful because once he rounds that corner, he is going to spot me just simply based on the nearness. But you know, he had only a limited window to shoot at me before I pulled back. I took a blind fire on their OHO, and then their STI is trying to angle his tank. The problem is it's pretty tough, like crossing across open ground here, because he's put himself in a very exposed field of fire, potentially to our arty. I don't think our tank destroyers over by the 8-line are going to have shots on him, but generally speaking, you know, both the STI and the OHO were playing the wrong areas of the map. You don't want to go over the ridge into the flat open areas unless you know that their tanks are not going to be able to shoot you. And then the OHO crossing the ice in the middle, the frozen lake just absolutely makes no sense. Best place those tanks should have gone is to the northwest and helped their team maybe pull out that area, but they really couldn't. But like I was saying, I've tried, like, you see where Object 257 is in the south area of the map, like around the J lane. I've tried spotting those areas. Part of the problem is that you have such a narrow field of fire if you are up in that, that southeastern corner of the map. If you're on the lower ground, you can't shoot the tanks that are in that northwest ridge, because most of the time you won't have line of sight on them. And then, by the way, with that, Pantera, what I probably should have done, because I could tell listening that he had fired his gun a few times, is just take the shot and then pull back, and then, during my reload, wait for my reload, pull back under hard cover. As it was, like, in a situation like this, we're already ahead. Like, I'm not so concerned about, conserving my HP. We're going to win. And then there's a great example of why you should never text and drive. Like, I'm trying to tell the Artie who shot me, splashed me. It's okay. It's not going to affect the outcome of this battle. It's already in the bag, frankly. But like I said, the southeastern corner of the map, I've tried it so many different ways, and you can get stuck or pinned in, and it's especially bad if you're in a light tank on the upper ridge on the southeast corner of the map if you run into like a tier 10 medium or tier 9 medium, because they'll outbrawl you. They've got better DPM, they've got a better armor layout. It is important to note that the turret of this tank is pretty solid. It's not great, but it's good. And then there's a cage around it and spaced armor, which helps against specific ammo types that have a tendency to explode, right? Aside from the just strict armor piercing stuff. But I found the combination of 390 Alpha, which is great on a light tank, and then especially when you pair that with a functional turret, makes this tank so much easier to play compared to the tier 9, which is my least favorite tank in the Chinese light tank tree. Now, I had very good results with the tier 6, 7, and 8, and 10 so far. Okay, so this particular battle, just showing a little bit about the mid-ridge play. You do have to be careful, when you're in a tank like the WZ that has such poor gun depression, because you have to really poke up and over far unless you go to one edge of the ridge and you're kind of aiming over the side of the tank, which is a very common tactic to do. You'll see a lot of RU and Chinese medium players also doing similar things, and that way you can minimize your exposure. Alright, so what's crazy is I've actually never covered how to spot the western side of the map in Prokhorovka. So you can see this is an all tier 10 battle. Now, what you'll see tons of videos on YouTube about is going to the magical E1 or F1 bush, right? And you'll see plenty of people post battles where, especially for low mid-tier games, where they get to the magical bush and they're able to spot for a bazillion damage and carry their team to victory. So that's great in lower tiers, and if you can but the thing is, like, tier 8 to 10 battles, especially like an all tier 10 battle like this, there are a ton of tanks running around with 390, 400 plus meters of view range, right? And so to get up to the F1 bush from this side, or E1 bush from this side, or F1 bush from the other side, requires you to cut across open ground, and you will get spotted if the opposing team is at all competent. If you make it up to the E1 F1 bush, then the other team is full of, frankly, a bunch of morons, right? So the safest thing to do, in my opinion, is to push along the road and then to drive in a straight line through the bushes, right, when you're moving north or south. And what this does is put an incredible density of bushes where it's like literally impossible to spot you frontally. Now, some people drive on the eastern side. That would be to my left, the other side of the road. I don't like doing that so much, only because there are gaps in the bushes occasionally, and there are tanks that might be mid, like along the F lane, can spot you. But this Sheridan here is making the very classic example. He's belatedly trying to go to the F1 bush. Had he gone earlier, I would have spotted him, and because he's going late, I'm going to spot him. Now, notice I withheld my shot until he was splashed by RD, because that stun mechanic affects his vision. It is possible when I fire that I might have been spotted by something else, but it's like one of those things where I think even as a light tank, you want to try to work your gun in when you're taking calculated risks. And so I deem, since I hadn't spotted anything else aside from the Super Conqueror, and if there are any other tanks, they might be on the other side of all these bushes. And I got to be careful doing what I'm doing here. I'm just peeking out to see if my Sixth Sense gets lit. In my opinion, the Super Conqueror is making a big mistake. Not only is he going to a very campy area of the map, and he really should be either playing mid or hill, right, where you can use that gun depression. But the problem with these tanks that are sitting in the back corner of the map, like the 183 and the Super Conqueror, is they're not behind bush cover, right? And if they're facing a competent light tank driver like me, I'm going to spot them. And then once, they get spotted, the gig is up. RD's going to start, we've got multiple RDs in this game, 3 RDs, and we've got some very heavy hitting tank destroyers backing up. Now, our T-57 Heavy, he's too far forward. You can see he's all the way up by the E1 bush, and I can hear him getting shot. He's going to die in a moment here. That's a mistake. You need to stay far enough back behind your light tank. Like, there's no reason for me at this time to push up any closer than I am. I've got multiple tanks lit, right, which is allowing our tanks to keep their guns busy. T-57 pushed up so far that he's going to get spotted. He can't fire safely. Right, okay, so that 183 is splashed. I'm going to back up to those bushes, get solid. So he's got the stun effect, and I've got this bush cover, so I go ahead and fire. Now, all the tier 10 lights suffer from poor accuracy. So that shot there, even though it was fully aimed in, it tracked him but didn't do any damage. Relatively low damage per minute or high reload times. And then the thing which is the real killer to me is high penetration drop-off with distance. And you can find that out by mousing over the ammo type for your tier 10 tanks and seeing what it's at. The penetration number is at like 100 meters, 200 meters, etc. And then compare that to other tanks, including tier 9 light tanks. And what you'll see is that the 10s, for whatever reason, have a unusually steep drop-off, right? And part of the reason I'm showing this particular video is I'm just being patient. I'm gradually working vision because we killed their Sheridan. I'm working these bushes for all they're worth and being patient, and we are gradually picking apart their tank destroyers. Now, I didn't get any spotting credit for that, so it could be that the 62A might have had him lit. I don't know, JPE. I'm not sure. Anyway, their bat chat is blatantly coming over here to try to do something about this. I'm going to back away a little bit because I don't want to be right by the ridge since I've got the terrible gun depression. And then, okay, so he's chosen our JPE as a target that he wants to beat up on. And I just need to stay close enough here to try to work in some damage. And then I probably should have turned auto aim here because I'm going to miss that shot there. I did track him, so at least I'm going to get some spotting credit, but I should have landed another shot. It's kind of poor aiming on my part. All right, so it turns out we won every area of the map. We dominated 1-2 line. We dominated the 0 line on hill. Now it's just a matter of finding these last 2 tanks, and we have a pretty good idea where they are. The main thing I need to do is just keep moving so that this 155, which is an auto loader, is going to get at most 1 shot into me. Turn on auto aim, get the easy side shot on him, and then our team cleans that up. So obviously that was very face roll. I don't generally show battles that are this one-sided, but I want to show this just, moving vertically along those north-south bush lines is the smartest way to go. And, in a case like this, 7,200 damage, 7,200 assisted damage, spotting, and it probably could have worked in my gun for a little bit more damage. So that wraps up the Chinese light tank line. We're going to be looking at the ST-1, Striv 103B, and the AMX 5100 in upcoming episodes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.